Okay, everyone. Before the main show starts, there's an exciting announcement about Brawl, which is why we release a date late. Because this news came out on Monday, and we usually record over the weekends. And when this huge news hits, we're like, oh, we can't wait to talk about this. This is too huge for our format. We have to fit this in the show. So we're going to have this, little small segment before the show starts. I think delaying the release time of this episode for a day is going to be worth it. I hope you guys agree with me.
Well, to be fair, by the time this article came out, we already wrote what we had for the main show. We already did it, and we were already in production or post-production for it. So when this came out, it's like, this is really important. We literally should not wait a week to talk about this. So we had to kind of do the whole process again, but for the small segment.
Right. The main show is also going to be exciting, so don't worry about that. But we're going to talk about this article, which I will link in the show notes, that came out on Monday, written by Gavin Verhey, the father of Brawl. The title is Checking In on Brawl. He's literally talking about what they're observing with our format, how they're assessing the Dominaria set and see how well it did. About 20% of Magic player who responded to that survey, which, okay, they're going to be enfranchised player because they visit the Wizards website. But over 20% of those guys plays Brawl. That's 1/5 of the entire enfranchised population of, everyone.
Well, we're estimating that the players that visit the website are a token representation of the entire population, but that's still a lot of traction for something that's still this new for a format.
In response to that, he wrote this article, and we're going to talk about something, but I think we're going to start with the most important announcement that came out with this article. They're updating the one-on-one format. The one-on-one format has changed before, turning down to 30 life to 20, and that was huge because that made our format a lot faster when you're playing one-on-one. But that also made one-on-one formats a little bit different from our multiplayer formats. So one of the things they did with one-on-one Brawl is they're tuning the starting life total back up to 25.
And that's an interesting change. It'll obviously slow the game down a little bit. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the change, but they want to keep it kind of close together, so to say, because the two formats, quote-unquote formats of Brawl were like multiplayer and one-on-one. And because of the disparate life differences, it felt like two entirely different formats, really, because in a one-on-one situation, these aggressive decks became a lot more viable than they are in a multiplayer setting. The hyper aggressive low to the ground strategies are way more viable in the one-on-one settings because one multiplayer you have more than one opponent to kill to win the game, but also 30 life. So they're trying to bridge that gap a little bit with this change.
Right. The aggro decks are literally running rampant in the 20 life meta. We have built one of my personal favorite, the Emerald Beckett Brass deck. There's also people playing mono red. Karisef just start swinging from turn 3. Tuning it back up to 25 is going to give the aggro players and the control players a better balance. The aggro decks are not completely going under the control players, but the control players will still need to catch up with the faster decks.
On that note, in this type of singleton format, it's a lot easier to build, a mediocre to good aggro deck. There's a lot of redundancy because in this kind of format, when you're trying to have a hyper aggressive start and your opponent is playing a less consistent singleton deck, it becomes more okay to just play sometimes a vanilla 2-2 for 2. But that's okay because if your opponent is caught off guard by that, it doesn't matter. They're gonna die anyways. Their deck isn't as consistent as blue-white control or blue-black control as it is in standard, where they're playing 4 removal spells, 4 board wipe or whatever. So it's actually a big difference. I think it's okay, but I understand that they're trying to not make it so different from each other.
Yeah, another change that they made is for one-on-one Brawl, and only one-on-one Brawl, players are allowed 1 free mulligan. The reason why they're doing that is because Brawl has a relatively small card pool, and it is a singleton format. So it's actually kind of difficult to, for people to include the right density of certain type of effects, like early place and creature removal. And a lot of the dual lands come untapped, and they kind of become bad when you're drawing it on turn 4, and not being able to play a untapped land on turn 4 kind of hurts you a little bit. So allowing for a free mulligan is going to help the deck to get the effects they want a little bit more consistently, especially in the early game. This also helps players to build decks that are focused more around synergies and less about building around the commander.
I actually dislike this change as well. It's not a bad change. In fact, I think, well, I'm not sure if saying dislike the change is bad. No, man, I actually think I'm the opposite. I think this change is good, but it's just like I think they should give the free mulligan to not just one-on-one Brawl, but to the multiplayer Brawl too.
I think so.
As someone that really enjoys other games like chess, where there is no variance, I'm all for removing as much variance as possible in this game. So
Yeah.
I think they didn't go far enough with this one. It's not that I didn't like it. I don't think they went far enough with it. It's a good change.
Right. This again kind of divides the format into, the one-on-one type of decks and the multiplayer type of decks, because now it's a little bit easier for multiplayer players to transition to one-on-one because their decks are more consistent because they don't have this free mulligan. One-on-one decks that people build from now on, they're going to be a little bit reliant, so to speak, on this change of rules. And it may make it more difficult for them to transition into the multiplayer space because, well, they don't get the free mulligan in multiplayer.
Yeah, but overall, it's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah.
I'm really curious as to where they're going to keep going with this, because the article kind of ends off with saying, like, well, we're looking to try this out, and it's a new format. They got to test it out, and there's no better test subject size than to just release it to the public. Wizards can only do so much testing. In fact, I'm not sure if they did a whole lot of testing at all for this format, really.
In the article itself, they wrote that they kind of rolled this format out just to, see how players will react to it. So they didn't really do a lot of testing in it. This is actually a perfect segue to the next thing we're going to talk about. They are stressing that from now on, there are going to be support of this format from the design team. Not only will they be playing a lot of Brawl, but they will also be keeping our format in mind when they're designing the upcoming sets. I mean, granted, they designed 2 years ahead. So by the time we really see this change happen, it's going to be 2020. Yeah. But yeah, those big splashy effects that happens, that commander players like, we may see it for our format, not like the 8 mana big splashy thing, but maybe we get a 7 mana one, hopefully. So yeah, these are great. And they also stressed on bringing in different legendary color combinations, and hopefully we will have a more balanced color diversity, so to speak, in our format.
But this is an unpopular opinion, but I actually really dislike it when they start deliberately designing and testing for this type of format. I think it's really interesting to see what the kind of decks that people can come up with using cards in certain scenarios and different ways and combinations that they weren't intended to be used in. It's like you're like MacGyvering a deck up, but that's all going to be done away with, because now that they've explicitly said, well, we're going to intend on providing official card support format. So, in my opinion, it's an unpopular opinion, I'm guessing, and I'm also predicting that this is a healthy change for the Brawl format overall. I think it'll, more support is better, but those are just my 2 cents on the card selection, though.
Sure, I mean, that's fine. People should still be able to build in the style of deck building that you were talking about, but it's going to be a little bit easier for the other type of players. Especially, I think Brawl is a format that is kind of like a bridge for newer players to kind of
get into
the. Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that. I think it's easy for them to dive into the deeper formats, because in formats like Standard, the interactions are not as complicated. It's very straightforward, and there are only so many decks in competitive Standard that you will see those interaction and eventually just dismiss them because you see it like once every 3 games. But in Brawl, like crazy things can happen, right? And I think that's when a player can really dive into the nitty gritty of the rules of Magic.
Well, yeah, you're right, but like I think it's actually the other way around. Like for the absolute newest player, like I just acquired my first Magic card today. I think standard is better for them because as you said, the interactions are simpler. They get to see the same set of interactions over and over to help them learn the game. But like this, I think you're right though with the still new, but like I know how to play the game at a basic level kind of thing. I think that's where Brawl is really good.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Because like
I
it's just like basic game design, like, right? You don't want to like throw out a bunch of different mechanics at your brand new player because they're gonna get confused. But like once they have like a kind of a grip over the game and I mean I saw the basic interactions already. I think it's great to spice it up with Brawl.
Sure. But I do want to stress that this type of format is a more casual format, and when you're sitting down at a multiplayer table, more often than not, your opponent is going to explain to you what's going on. Either during the game or after the game. That's not never going to happen in a standard FNM. So that's what I meant when I was saying it's going to be easier for newer players to kind of learn the nitty gritty.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I find that the community is generally pretty helpful if you don't know what's going on.
Sure. Maybe I should start pretending that I don't know what's going on because people are starting to kind of target me having a Brawl podcast and everything. So I died to an infinite combo today.
Wow.
A Jorah infinite combo. Well, not he didn't actually go infinite, but even Flux Reservoir.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So you went to 106 life, and then you pay 100 to kill those two opponents. Pretty painful. What happened? Anyways, off the tangents, going back to what we were talking about, another thing they touched on is store support. So I am lucky that my local game store that my friend owns is heavily supporting the Brawl format. I'm in their Brawl League, and there are a lot of gameplays that's happening. There is just good price support for the event. And he's also a big advocate of, not only Brawl, but also Kerfuffle. So I get to play my Grimlock deck when people are okay with playing Silver Border.
Unfortunately, what they've kind of seen though with Brawl, and this might sound like a little bit of grim news, but fret not. What they've seen so far with Brawl is like there's like pockets of support. So like when Brawl is really popular, it's great there, it's thriving. But if you don't have Brawl, like it's just dead. Like you'll ask like, hey, we want to play Brawl. What's a Brawl? Like, oh, Super Smash Brothers Brawl. Like nobody's heard of it, and they're making some changes that they haven't actually said. They kind of just honestly like. I hate to criticize Wizards too much, but like they kind of just said like a whole lot of nothing about that. But like they just said we're doing stuff, but we can't tell you what we're doing. But it sounds to me like they're really investing a lot more in this format. So I'm excited to see what they're able to do to give more support to the areas that are struggling to bring this format up to speed. So worry not, I'm absolutely sure that Brawl will pick up traction in the areas that it hasn't. So if you're one of the unlucky people that don't have a lot of people to play Brawl with, or maybe your store doesn't run events like that yet, don't worry, I think it will come to you soon.
Absolutely. And speaking of not saying a lot, they also didn't say a lot about the next topic, which is rotation. That is actually one of the things I was most concerned about. Like I'm actually dreading that day about when Ravnica hits, we're going to lose a bunch of cards in the Brawl format that I'm actually playing, and it's actually a pretty important part of my deck right now.
Yeah, but it seems to me like I feel like all that Gavin really said was, oh yeah, so Brawl is going to keep the same card pool as standard, basically banless aside. That's basically all he said.
Right, that's literally all he said. They're saying that without actually going through rotation, they can't really tell you what they feel about the rotation hitting the format because it never happened. So they kind of need to have it happen first.
Yeah.
Right? And if you don't like rotation, go play Commanders.
Yeah.
That's no rotation.
That kind of sucks. Nah, I mean, like, yeah, you're right. Like, if you don't like it, then, like, don't do it. Like, I always hate that line, but like it's kind of true here, but like also not. So like rotation is always exciting for me because I mean, I come from a little bit of a competitive background, but like rotation, it like spices up the format, you know, like all the same like stale interactions you've been seeing, like the top tier strategies, everything gets shuffled around a little bit. So like for example, like one standard maybe white black is on top, right? But then rotation happens and half of white black's deck's just rotated. So now maybe like green red is top or blue black or something, you know, like you can like
Right.
there's two ways to like look at it. You know, you can look at it and be like, oh, my deck is my half my deck is rotating, and oh my it's not viable anymore. But the other way to look at it is like, but wait, all the strategies have just gotten shaken up, and now there's a ton of
Right. Now you can
space to like,
experiment, right?
yeah, that's your time to experiment. You know, you might find like the next tier one, and there will be a new tier
Absolutely.
one. Now it's like instead of like having to worry about Joda, it's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
playing against a Joda. You know,
Yeah.
but
Now,
like
now Brawl is gone. I mean, it's a banned card, by the way. But now that Karisef is gone, new things.
yeah. So it's just it's looking at it just in two different ways, and I'm personally in favor of rotation times. They're the most fun times for me.
Yep. And don't worry, not guys. When rotation hits, I'm gonna drop a little teaser here. It's already in plan that we will talk about rotation and what you can do to getting towards rotation.
You mean like rotate on the League of Legends map? You know, when you have your middle lane goes bot and your
Yeah,
bottom lane heads to
absolutely.
dragon, and your top lane rotates to mid.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah, like that kind of
if they're
rotation.
if they're playing Caitlyn and a healer, and you're playing Tristana and Blitzcrank, well, you better go mid and have the
Yeah.
mid person come over. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, because you need pressure for to win the dragon fight, so you can take the. But hold on, we're talking about this. Wrong game. We got off way off topic. Anyway, is there anything else we want to add about this? Like, I think we pretty much covered the.
Yeah,
whole
we
article.
cover I think we cover pretty much everything about the article. I like everything he's saying here, and I wonder
Well, in
everything
the
he's
parts that
not
he was
saying
actually
here.
saying stuff, yeah.
Right, and you know, I wonder what he's not actually telling us, and I'm a little bit curious, but that's
I
about
think that's
it.
what he was.
For
That was
yeah,
the intention. He wanted us to be curious.
right. So yeah, that's. But anyways, that's this segment of the show. So I hope you enjoys what's coming next. I mean, you've seen the topic most likely, so
Please enjoy the main event.
please enjoy the main event. That's what it is. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 16 of Brawling Pit, where we talk everything about Brawl, a standard legal commander format. I am one of your hosts, Johnathan Tang. Joining me on the line is Jacob.
Hi.
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm alright. How are you?
I'm alright too. I mean, I just came back from pre-release for Core 19, and
Oh yeah, how was that?
I went undefeated in the first one because I had a really good pull. Turns out Goblin Motivator is really good. Turns out Nico Bolus
That's
is
a
really
common
good.
though.
Oh yeah, Motivator is a common. All it
But you
does
also
is
pulled a nickel bolus, you
I
say.
also pull a Nico Bolus. I was in Grixis that
Wow.
one game, and
And you actually got to play it.
I got to play it a couple of times. I never flipped him because he's much better as a creature, turns out, than a planeswalker. So,
Yeah, you know, he can kill pretty quick, and then that discard effect will, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. I think I would much rather having him as a creature than flipping him on the planeswalker side. It's like when every time when I have the opportunity to flip him, right? I'm like, all right, what do I want to lose this 4/4 in the air right now? And the answer is always no. So,
Yeah.
yep.
There's a lot of things you could be doing with 7 mana. Actually, that's our main topic today.
That is our big topic today. Nice segue, man.
Thanks, man. I've been up all night working on that one.
There you go. So what are we going to talk about today, Jacob?
Well, we're actually just going to be talking about what is mana. So
Wait, you mean like the things you use to cast spells, like the resources of this game?
Yeah. So basically, mana is the resource that you add from usually tapping your land sideways, but you can also generate mana from other sources. And you spend that mana to cast spells. The end. Thanks for coming out, everybody.
But
That's the
yeah,
end of the
all right, yeah.
show.
As always, you can. Wait, hold on a second here. It's not even
We've
like
done this gag a little too often.
it's not even 2 minutes into the show. What are you talking about? So
Wait,
I
it's not
mean,
even 2 minutes? We have another hour?
it's all right.
No, I'm kidding.
I think we're gonna be fine. Um, just
I'm sorry, we have
should we?
another
I mean,
58 minutes of this?
all right. So what can we talk about? Um,
Well,
well,
actually, mana is a very complex topic, despite how people were introduced into the game. And it's like one of those things that isn't talked about, honestly, like deep enough. There are tons and tons of resources that do talk about this very topic, but I don't think they go deep enough into like the theoretical, and from the theoretical you can extrapolate into something useful for the practical and into a deeper and better understanding of what mana actually is.
right. So today, this will be the first of our evergreen series. Whatever standard it is, you can tune in and listen to this episode and it will be useful. And
I think the only place where it may not be useful is vintage. No,
oh
I'm
yeah,
kidding.
because
But
there's no mana in vintage. What are you
no,
talking about?
it's still useful in vintage. It's just not as obvious because you just cheat everything out anyway. Turn one.
Play Mox, Black Lotus,
Yeah.
and play
Channel
6.
Fireball.
Yep, Channel Fireball.
Yep.
Yep, game over.
Yep. With forcible backup, of course.
Yep. So
But actually onto the main core of this topic. So let's start over. What is mana? What really is mana? What do you think?
well, I think mana is a thing that you get by tapping
And
your
by the
land
way, I'm
sideways.
not asking for the kiddie answer that we just gave, like, oh, you get it from tapping whatever. We'll do all that obligatory stuff later. In your opinion, what is mana like really?
Mana is the resource you use to do things in the game.
Okay. I mean
You
that's
want
a
to you want to use your mana to either cast spells or activate abilities or do other things that can help you win
right.
the game.
So I mean that's a good definition. I guess we could really just like refine that and say like, well, mana is the primary resource, not the only resource, but the very primary resource by which we play this game.
Sure.
So Magic has a set of rules. Spoiler, you didn't know that. The rules in this game.
I think I checked the other day, and there are 226 pages in the comprehensive rules
Wow.
as of M19.
Wow. Oh. Well, I didn't know that, so thank you. That's my little bit of trivia of knowledge for the day that I've learned. So Magic has rules, and one of the rules are that you only get to play one land a turn.
Really? No.
Yes.
You mean
There are
what?
lots of ways to beat that rule. That's kind of like the way that I've thought about Magic from the get-go. Is like there's a set of rules, and then your cards let you break those rules. And I
Right.
think that's a very easy way to think about Magic.
Yeah, it's one of the fundamental rules, right? You normally in the first couple of turns, ideally you will get your mana every turn. You're slowly growing your mana pool, but on turn 5 or turn 6, it kind of stops a little bit and then it comes back. It depends on whether or not you're drawn to your lands, right? So
Yeah, unfortunately, that's one of the aspects of Magic, but it is what it is. Anyways, so just as a final disclaimer, this is general. This is a general evaluation of what mana is. This is a general look into this resource that we call mana. It may not always apply word for word in every single situation. This is more of like a kind of like an abstract kind
yeah,
of discussion. Yeah.
and I mean, and you can probably come up with like exceptions, like whatever you talk about this episode. If we give you like whatever we tell you, take it as a general guideline instead of a rule of like that's written in stone, because there are always exceptions to whatever we talk about.
Exactly. So as we just said, every turn, generally, like, we're not going to get into all the exceptions. And in Magic, we know there are a million exceptions. It's a very complex thing. But generally, you get to play one land a turn, which means you get one extra mana per turn. So, mathematically speaking, when you go from 1 to 2 mana, you are literally mathematically doubling your mana, right?
Sure.
You have a math degree. Can you confirm this?
Yeah, I think 1 times 2 is most of the time 2.
Most of the time. Well,
Well,
can you give me an example?
in binary space, 1 times 2 will be 10.
Okay. Oh, binary space. Binary space. Got it. Got it. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But this is decimal. We're in the decimal system.
Right.
Okay. We're base 10 right now.
Sure.
So, in the mathematical sense, going from 1 to 2 mana, you're literally doubling your mana.
Mhm.
That's a big deal. You just got 2 times the amount of resources that you have. You doubled your resource pool.
Right. Yeah. A lot of
And-
things that only cost 1 mana are really bad. But when you're into the 2 mana territory, now you can cast bears.
Now you can cast two mana spells, or you can cast 2 1 mana spells in
But
one
why would
turn.
you want to do that? That's crazy.
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know.
it's
Good
like
question.
Black Shadowborn Apostle. Why would you want
I don't
to?
know, but you could do that. Like, you have more options, and you know, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, but I'm gonna say with confidence and conviction that generally the player with more options tends to win more often than the player with fewer options.
Sure.
So you have that option. You can play 2 1 mana spells in a turn, and that will let you. Well, I'm just gonna say it like this: in Magic, the player that plays more cards, spends more mana, draws more cards, etc. Those are symptoms of winning. Just because you spent more mana than your opponent doesn't necessarily mean that that you're guaranteed to win the game. It's not like a point system, but like there's a big correlation of, well, my opponent cast like 5 creature spells and I cast like 2 removal spells but died. You know, that's a symptom of the correlation. No.
Sure. I
So
think what you're trying to say is you want to be casting your spells efficiently, and if you're
yes,
casting your 3 drops when you have 4 mana available to you,
we're gonna
and
exactly
when your opponent is casting 4 drops when there are 4 mana available
right.
to
We're gonna get into that.
your opponent.
We're gonna get into that a little bit in a little bit. So going from 2 to 3 mana, that's still a big step. But
It's 1.5, right?
but mathematically, it's not as big of a step, but it's still a pretty big step.
Now you can cast more than a bear. Now
Right.
you get your 2/2 flyers.
Exactly. And going from 3 to 4, once again, pretty big step, but not as big as going from 2 to 3, and that's not even as big as going from 1 to 2.
I don't know. Hill Giants are 4 mana.
Right, and what this theory, all this mathematical theory about the mana and the what is it? The additional the marginal increase of resource from the additional unit of mana. What this is trying to illustrate is that mana has diminishing returns. Okay.
Right.
So in a practical sense, let's say you're top decking and you're top decking in Brawl, right? Both of you have empty hands, empty graveyards, empty everything, right? You're both at 10 mana. Or you're both at 10 lands, right? And you draw a land.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, like what's the big difference between the 10th and 11th mana? Well, like in the mathematical sense, not much, you know.
Right. You're only increasing 10% of your mana.
Right.
I think we should wait. Hold on a second. Should we
What?
say like percent and double, like all these mathematical mumbo jumbo? Are you guys scared, listeners? Can we say these things?
You know what? I have faith that our audience is intelligent enough to handle these terms.
Okay. I'm
But
gonna
if you're not, let
us know.
totally okay. Let us know. And we'll always be happy to clarify any questions that we can. So basically what this is trying to say is like mana has some diminishing returns. On the flip side, right? You're both stuck on 1, right? Let's say you're both playing aggressive decks, and you're both stuck on 1 mana, and you're only playing 1 creature spell turn, and you draw your second mana.
Damn.
Like,
Greatness.
Like you probably just won the game if your opponent stays stuck, or even just for like a turn.
Goblin Guide.
The the value of mana is relative. It's relative based on the state of the game. It's relative based on how much mana you already have, what you need, what your opponent has. You know, like let's say you're on 1 mana, you're stuck on 1 mana, and you're playing against a control deck, and your control opponent is already on like 8 mana or whatever, and they got 20 life, they have 7 cards in hand, perfectly okay on 8 mana. You're stuck on 1, casting 1 spell a turn, and you draw your second land. Probably, even though like you did double your mana, probably doesn't matter too much because your control opponent has 7 cards in hand and 20 life. Like their cards and their mana right now are more valuable than yours actually. And we'll go way more in depth on card advantage in another
But
time.
that's an episode for
Yeah.
in a future episode.
Right.
Today we're talking about mana.
Right, mana. Well,
Right.
to be clear, mana and tempo, because I think it's impossible to talk about mana without talking about tempo, at least to some degree.
I'm gonna prove it to you that it is possible. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Okay. And so basically, how we were saying earlier is you want to play your spells efficiently. So if you've got 4 mana available to you, and you decide to cast your 3-drop, in theory, you are not being mana efficient.
Right.
And the way that Magic works, once again, these are the core rules of Magic. You get to untap all of your lands on your untap step, and you can't like bank or store up or save up your mana, right? So if you've got extra mana at the end of your opponent's turn, you can't just tap and end a turn and throw it in the bank and then untap. So effectively, if you don't any mana you don't spend at the end of every turn or turn cycle, basically like between your untap steps, is wasted mana.
It's money that you're leaving on the table, and you didn't get those money.
You can never spend quote unquote that mana ever again. Like that mana at that point in time, you can never spend it again.
Right.
Because like there won't be a turn 5 when I have 4 mana up. They'll like if I go do the table or if I do the go around and I just pass, the next time I get a chance to spend that mana will be turn 6, but it won't be turn 5 anymore. It'll be turn 6.
Right. You lost a turn. You lost a mana that they're not coming back. And your opponents, if they're playing efficiently, you know they're spending all their mana, which means you are now behind because, well,
because as we just said, generally when you're playing more spells, generally when you're spending more mana, you're growing your lead or shortening the lead if you're behind.
Right.
So this brings us up to a card called Flame Strike. What does Flame Strike do?
I can answer that question.
Okay. What is Flame Strike?
I believe Flame Strike is a card that does not exist in Magic.
But it does exist in another game called Hearthstone.
Hearthstone is also a competitive card game, but there are no paper form. You don't need to know everything about the game. Just know that
it's basically like Magic, but slightly different.
Right. The key difference that it matters for this episode is instead of dropping lands, every turn you get mana automatically. Your mana pool grows
automatically. And aside from that, for the purposes of this discussion, just pretend Hearthstone is a clone of Magic. Just an exact clone of Magic. Besides that,
Flame Strike is a 7 mana card that says deal 4 damage to all creatures your opponent controls. In Magic words.
Right. So, and just to give it like a color identity, I think it would cost probably like 5 red or 4 red.
Probably be a 5 red card.
Right. So let's evaluate this card. I think you're a pretty good card. I think you're a pretty good player, and I'd like to think I'm like an okay player. So, Flame Strike. Would you play this card in Brawl?
Well, so we can compare it to some other cards that has been printed in Magic history that I would play. So one of the card that's very similar to Flame Strike in our format existing as of the recording of this podcast is Star of Extinction that is also 5 red but deals 20 to everything, and you get to also destroy target land. So will I play Flame Strike? I probably won't.
Yeah, but the upside to Flame Strike is it doesn't hit your stuff.
That is true.
But I guess what we're saying is like, would you play this card? I probably wouldn't. You know, like this is coming into a term that we call opportunity cost. Now, you were an econ major. What is explain to us what an opportunity cost is?
Well, an opportunity cost is a cost you incurred when you take any action, and the resources you dump into those actions could have been spent doing something else, and you're not doing those other things. So when you're casting Flame Strike in Magic, if this card is a Magic card, you're not spending your 7 mana doing something else, and there are a lot of things you can do with 7 mana. Like
you could be flipping a Nicol Bolas.
You can be flipping over your Nicol Bolas. Exactly what I was about to say.
You can play a 4-drop and a 3-drop.
You can play a 4-drop and a 3-drop. You can deal 20 damage to everything and blow a land up.
You can commit a 7-drop to the board. I don't know what's a powerful 7-drop.
A powerful 7-drop.
You could be playing a Daragaz.
Yeah, Daragaz is strong. Perfectus.
You can play both Johnathan and the Mana Dork.
Yeah. But Flame Strike, one reason why it's weak is because it doesn't happen until turn 7, and by the time turn 7 happens,
like, does 4 damage kill anything?
A lot of key things are not 4 toughness anymore. So Flame Strike would be a weak card.
Right. So, like, let's even just be generous. Let's assume you're on the play, right? So you get to your 7th mana before anybody else does, and once again, we're gonna assume nobody's playing any mana ramp for this example. Okay. So 6 drops and 5 drops. They're all like 5 toughness and greater, right?
A lot of them are.
Yeah. Well, like the big ones are, like the important ones, like Muldrotha, 6 toughness. Daragaz. Oh, Daragaz is 7 drop. My bad.
7 toughness.
Right. I think basically all the dragons were like more than 4 toughness, like 5 or greater. Like all the big hitters that you want to be removing are greater than 4 toughness. Like, I'm not saying that this card would be absolutely useless, but like it's not good. Like I'd say this is like below average, you know?
Sure.
So
but what's your point?
You probably wouldn't play it. So you probably wouldn't play it because the opportunity cost of that 7 mana is so much greater. You could literally play the Nicol Bolas Planeswalker and get rid of like one thing as opposed to playing Flame Strike and like, oh, I killed that Mana Dork and I killed his like 3/4 or whatever, but I'm still staring down a Daragaz and you know, like it doesn't solve the problem.
No, that's not. I mean, you can literally be playing anything that's not deal 4 damage to. I mean, how often does it? When you cast a spell like that, I mean, most of the time it hits like 2 things. If you're playing 1-on-1 or like 6 things, who cares?
So, how can we balance Flame Strike? How can we like get Flame Strike to a point where we could properly say, I would play this card in Brawl, like consistently, not just like as a tech, you know, like I would usually consider playing this card in my deck if I'm in the colors for it, without it being like 1 mana kill everything, like Blasphemous Act. Like where is that middle point, you know? Because there is a middle point. This is a game of numbers. You know, like mana, those are numbers. Damage, those are numbers. Like,
well, all right. So let's think of the ups, you know, the ceiling of that question, right? Like, what does one-sided board wipe cost? I think the cheapest one I can think of
in any format.
The cheapest one I can think of in any format is Cyclonic Rift, and that's 8 mana.
And it's not even like a hard removal. You know, I mean, it generally is, but like if you're in like a late game state where nobody's hands are really full, you know, game is kind of even. It doesn't permanently answer it. They just get to pick them up, you know, and it's not like Hearthstone where they just burn everything that they couldn't pick up. No. They get to discard what they don't want, so they get to keep all those heavy hitters that they want to keep around.
Right. Same thing. One that's already a one-sided board wipe that's already in our format. As of the recording of this episode, Wakening Sun's avatar is 5 white, white, white. So again, 8 converted mana cost. I think that's the highest it can go. And when you're comparing to things like this, 7 seems very, very expensive because for 1 more mana, you just get rid of everything.
Burning Sun's avatar?
Wakening Sun's avatar.
Oh, Awakening Sun's avatar. Okay. And theoretically, Awakening Sun's avatar isn't even a one-sided board wipe, because if you have non-dinosaur creatures, like those get hit too.
Sure.
So, it's this kind of like one-sided board wipe almost doesn't really exist. I mean, I'm sure it does in some capacity, but whatever they are, they're very expensive, and they cost more than 7 too.
Sure. But this is not a board wipe. This is dealing 4 to everything.
Right. So, what if we let's think about like what the standard is, right? So, Lightning Bolt. That's 1 mana for 3 damage.
Oh,
Okay.
hold on. I think a true one-sided board wipe is like in Garrick's Wake, which costs 9
yeah,
mana.
right.
7
You're right.
black to destroy all creatures you don't control and all planeswalkers you don't control. So 7 seems expensive.
Really expensive.
Or it costs only 5 if you're playing Joda.
Imagine if that card were in standard.
Or it costs 0 if you have Omniscience out.
I can't believe I forgot about that card. That card was insane when I played.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, playing ramp?
Yeah.
That's it?
I teched it, yeah, on that sideboard.
Yep.
I teched it. In my green-black devotion, yep. Anyway, so let's think about the standard, right? So Lightning Bolt is 1 mana for 3 damage.
Sure.
Well, if we try to apply that ratio, okay, by that logic, Flame Strike should deal 21 damage. Okay, that's
a lot of times you can probably do 20. All you need is hit 5 creatures, and if you're playing a 4-player game, if everyone controls 2 creatures, that's 20 damage.
That's a lot of damage to play. Little overpowered.
Right.
Even if we try Lightning Strike, Lightning Strike is 2 mana for 3 damage, but we're still at an overpowered ratio, right? Like, that's, we only have to do the math for that one.
Right.
But those are single target removal spells. Let's get a little closer to what Flame Strike actually is, and it's just one-sided damage. And
well, I think so similarly to thinking of the ceiling, right? In Garrick's 9 mana, right? That's as high as the spell should go. I think the lowest it should go is dealing 4 damage to 1 creature, and that's Electrify, which is 3 in a red to deal 4 to target creature. That's the lowest.
No. We're trying to do just deal damage to everything you don't control.
Right, but if you can deal 4 to 1 thing for 4 mana, then dealing 4 to everything you don't control should cost more than 4.
I think like the balance floor. I'm not sure if we can. Maybe I think we can leave that the tentative balance floor.
Sure.
So another card that's really similar to what we're saying is Electricity. Now Electricity or in Scouring Sands, depending on when you played, both those cards saw significant play in their formats. Electricity saw play in Standard and Modern. Scouring Sands saw play in Standard, not so much Modern. So both those cards saw significant play. So to some degree, they were good enough for the respective formats. So if we try to apply that same ratio to Flame Strike, okay, what are we going to get? Do the math.
That should cost 8. Because you're multiplying it by 4. And 2 times 4 equals 8.
Right. So if we tried to do that, if we set Flame Strike to cost 8 mana, well, this is literally just worse than what we said at 7 mana.
Right.
If we try to tone down the damage 7 for 3, no. I like this once again even worse. So clearly we can't just like mindlessly apply this ratio.
Right.
So why is this card so hard to balance? Like you and I, we could probably go back and forth on like, well, I think this would be balanced. Well, I think this would be balanced. Like we could take off a mana, add a damage. We could all the way till the cows come
Well,
home.
we know mathematically already that the balance point lies somewhere between 4 CMC and 9 CMC, because 9 mana destroys everything you don't control, and 4 mana deals 4 damage to one thing.
Yeah. So, and also don't forget we can mess with the damage value too. Like maybe we can have it deal only 3 damage to everything.
Sure.
Maybe we can have it deal 5.
Sure.
Yeah, honestly, I think 7 mana deal 5 to everything. It does get a little better, but I'm still on the fence about that.
Well, I wouldn't do. So, Hours of Devastation is 3 red, and it deals 5 damage to everything.
But that hits
including all your things. But if you
so it's like, would you pay the extra
mana,
2?
Would I save my guys for 2 mana? That's literally the question we're asking, right?
Right, but and I'm glad that you asked this question. That 2 mana, that's not the same 2 mana. That's not the same 2 mana as when you're stuck on, or that's not the same 2 mana when you only have 2 mana available, or 4 mana available. Sorry, that's not the same. It's not the same 2 mana. And what I'm trying to get at here is that the value of mana is dynamic, and I kind of said that earlier, but like this isn't your 3rd and 4th mana. This is your 6th and 7th mana.
Right, which is really hard to come by. A lot of times you don't get there.
Yeah, and so like those 6th and 7th and 8th and 9th mana, those demand like really, really flashy, impressive, powerful things out of your cards when you get up to those costs, because it takes a while to get there, or it takes a lot of resources to get there. One of the two, usually both.
Which is why we always stress in our episodes, hey, if you have green, play some land ramp, get some mana rocks out.
Right, there's a million ways you can ramp, but that, oh man, we can go into that. we may actually even get have time for that. So it's not. Would you save your creatures, like your side of the board, for an extra 2 mana? Well, like,
so I would definitely do it. In fact, if Hours of Devastation does not remove the indestructible clause, I would totally cast a heroic intervention on top of the Hours of Devastation just to save my guy.
Well, again, remember, this is your 6th and 7th mana to only deal 5. And, I'm still on the fence. I'm not sure. Like it definitely is a lot better, but I'm still on the fence. But like let's just iterate once more. So I mean, as a math major, you know what mathematical induction is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's just iterate one more on the damage. 7 mana deals 6. Okay, that's just blatantly overpowered. Like so like the amount of the pool of creatures that you're eligible to kill with this card without any assistance increases non-linearly, and it doesn't increase at the same rate as the cost of that extra mana does for this card.
Right. 7 mana deals 6 is quite a lot. And I mean, for 6 mana, you deal 7 damage to one thing. I think in no universe where it'll be fair for you to pay 1 more and deal 6 to everything.
Yeah, so isn't there like a happy medium? Can we just do 7 mana, deal 5.5?
I think.
Or we're not in the unset yet.
5.5 is hard because the halves are really hard to keep track of, which is why
maybe they can put it in the next unset.
Right. I mean, it was in the last unset, the second to the last unset. But I think one thing that we forgot to think about is in Hearthstone, 7 mana dealing 4 to everything means it kills most things, because in Hearthstone, For 7
Damage is
mana, a
permanent.
lot of the things are still kind of tiny.
Yeah.
And the damage kind of stays on there. So
Right. So it's a different beast, understandably, but
right.
like I think it's a good thought exercise though. To like, well,
Sure.
how could we balance this card?
Sure.
So that kind of like leads us into this next part of like why would we regard a vanilla 2/2 better than a vanilla 10/10 for 2 and 10 mana respectively? So the 2 mana 2/2 and 10 mana 10/10. Why would we say the 2 mana 2/2 is better? Like I mean, like spoiler alert, we will say that the 2 mana 2/2 is better than the 10/10. I think we can agree on that, right?
Well, so but be careful here because we're not talking about the 5-drop 10/10 that recently got dropped.
No. The 2 mana 2/2 vanilla and 10 mana 10/10 vanilla.
Yep.
Yeah, and by the way, spoiler, we are gonna say that the 2 mana 2/2 is better than the vanilla 10/10. I'm not talking about like the cute answer. Well, in combat, the 10/10 kills the 2/2. Well, obviously, but like if you have a card, if these two are cards, okay, which is the better card?
Right. If those two are cards, I think absolutely the 2 mana 2/2 is better, and here's why. For 2 mana, you first off 2 drops is very important in a lot of formats. Maybe not so much in ours, but in a lot of other formats, in limited, for example, having a 2-drop means you're getting board presence early.
And you're way more likely to
Right.
actually reach 2 mana.
Right, and your 2/2 can actually start attacking if your opponent does not have 2/2, or it can start blocking if your opponent has like a 3/2. The 10/10 doesn't really do a lot. Like if you are sinking 10 mana to play a 10/10, it better have trample.
At least.
Right, because a 10/10 just doesn't do anything. Right, if you attack with it, they can block with a 1/1.
Yeah. And also,
And if you're blocking with your 10/10, what are you doing?
you're probably dying if that's the
why
case.
are you blocking with your 10/10? Do something else.
But also, like, we were just talking about how big of a deal it was, like, the difference between your 5th, 6th, and 7th mana.
Right.
Like, that was a big deal. It is a big deal, right? If you're running a vanilla 10 mana 10/10, you're running the risk of just not even being able to play it.
Yeah.
Like, you actually would have been better off playing a basic land instead of that card.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it this way. You know what else you can cast with 10 mana? You can cast Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, which is a 10/10, but when you cast it, you exile 2 target permanents, and when it attacks, you mill the top 20 of your opponent's library.
Well, right. The main thing that we're trying to illustrate here is that there's opportunity cost in your cards, with your mana, with everything. So the opportunity cost of basically skipping a draw step. Like if this card for whatever reason is in your deck and you have it in your opening hand,
Right.
it's like, well, you just mulligan to 6 because
Right.
this card's like,
Yeah, I mean, if this is in your opening hand, it's terrible. You don't want this in your opening hand. It doesn't win you the game. It doesn't do anything. And like
So-
on turn 9, well, if you have 9 mana and you're in top deck mode, well, you top deck this card. It doesn't do anything.
You're better off drawing the land.
You just skip your draw step.
I don't like skipping my draw step. I like drawing cards.
If you draw into the 2/2 on turn 9, or when you have 9 lands, at least you can put a 2/2 on the board.
If you're losing, you can block with it. If it's an empty board, you can attack with it.
Right. The 10/10 doesn't do enough for 10 mana.
Yes, exactly. The point isn't that you shouldn't play 10 mana cards. The point is that your cards have opportunity cost too.
Right.
With respect to mana.
Right.
So, from earlier, we were saying that as your mana count increases, right, the additional unit of mana, your 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, whatever, your nth mana, right, they all demand more and more and more than the previous unit of mana. I think we can agree on that, right?
Sure.
So
it resolves.
By that logic, we would say that the mana cost of anything has the inverse structure of mana. So the additional cost of whatever spell you're casting matters less and less the more you increment it, right? So, what if, as an example that illustrates this, what if we said Emrakul costs 16 mana instead of 15 mana? Do you think anything changes in any format?
Probably nothing, because you
Right.
cheat it out anyways.
Like you're either cheating it out,
Right.
or if somehow you're ramping it, which if you have a ramp deck that can consistently cast
Which
Emrakul,
has happened to me in a game day.
okay, I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, someone resolved it.
If you have a deck that can do it, then let us know. But like if you're ramping to 15 mana, it's probably not that big of a deal for you to get to 16 mana if you're already at the 15th mana.
Right. I mean,
So
your deck runs 23 lands most of the time, 23, 24. That's more than half your lands.
yeah, it's mathematically, as we were getting into, going from 15 to 16, not that big of a deal for the cost. I'm emphasizing that's the cost, not the mana. What I'm saying is that the cost, not the mana, has the inverse structure of mana. The inverse structure of the demands of costs to affect. So like on the other side of the spectrum, let's look at the mono red deck, for example, right? Our current or red black aggro, whatever. So like, what if we made Lightning Strike cost 3 instead? You know, if we made Lightning Strike cost 3 instead of just 2, I I don't want to say that we would kill the deck, but we would definitely cripple it. Like, and that's just one card, just one card from the deck, and we change it from 2 to 3 mana.
Right. I mean, it's literally turning Lightning Strike into Open Fire.
Don't remind me of that card. But the point is that like the cost versus the mana, cost has the inverse structure of mana. So for mana, the additional your additional units of mana demand more effect, but it's the inverse with cost. The additional unit of cost demands less and less. I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. You're saying that the marginal increase of mana cost, of the confirmed mana cost, you know, as the marginal as the number of confirmed mana costs increase, the marginal cost of increasing that one mana decreases, but the marginal benefit of that cost better be huge.
Basically, yeah. So there are a lot of varying amounts of damage that are demanded from a certain mana count, from like a balancing perspective, right? Like if we wanted to guarantee that our theoretical Flame Strike wanted to see play, it would just read 1 mana, like win the game. Like, okay.
Yeah, I would definitely play 1 mana, you win the game.
Oh, everybody would did.
Yeah.
So it's the rate at which the pool of effective targets grows. Like, you know how I mentioned with our Flame Strike going from the 4th to 5th mana, you've now included like a crap ton of more creatures that die without any assistance from other effects to that card, and it grows differently. Like it grows at a different rate than what that the pool of effective targets is growing differently at a different rate. I think is what I'm in the appropriate wordage. I almost said wordage. Is the appropriate wording here, and it's different from the additional cost of the next mana. So TLDR, balancing this card is really hard.
That has been what we were talking about for the last 10 minutes.
Yes, all that was literally just to illustrate why balancing this card is, I think, is like gonna. I think it's almost impossible. Like I don't think this card has a successful translation.
That's why you don't necessarily need a perfectly balanced card, because the game balances out itself. And if it's too broken, we ban it.
I don't like this approach, but you're technically right. So let's give it a stab, though. Anyways, it's a fun thought experiment. We've covered everything so far. We might as well get the reward from it. So where do you think? So you can't add any other effects, okay? So Changing only
So,
the mana cost
the
and the
ru-
damage.
So the
What
rules
would you
text.
change
The rules text is still deal X damage
to
to
everything you don't control?
alright, to everything, including planeswalkers or no planeswalkers.
No, sorry, just creatures
Alright, to every creatures that you don't
that
control.
you don't control. Yeah. So like, the only thing you could change is the mana cost and the damage.
To make it
And you can
playable
also
in
you can also
standard.
change the you can also change the color requirement too.
To make it playable in standard.
Yes, to make
Alright,
it
I think
playable.
I'll balance it at 1 and a red. Deal 1 damage to each creature that you don't control.
You didn't even try. But I guess with the way I asked the question, this is a valid answer.
Yep.
But he didn't even
That's the
try.
answer to your question. I would totally play that card.
Did I tell you the McDonald's story?
What is the McDonald's story?
Okay. So uh, it's late at night, and I'm heading to McDonald's with my pals after F&M.
Sure.
So I had these coupons for 2 Big Macs, and I'm kind of a little bit picky, and so is my brother. I'm actually not that picky. I just don't like cheese. So we get up to the counter. Okay, we order. I tell the guy, all right, I want your Big Mac meal, no cheese, but everything else is fine. I don't care. Just don't put cheese on it. And then my brother gets up to order. Now he's the picky one. All right, so we tell him, okay, but on this one, we want meat, cheese, bun. That's it, nothing else. All right, so it's like, okay, got it. They sounded really confident they were gonna get this order right, and I put a lot of faith in them because we were hungry and we were tired. So we sit down, we wait, and then we finally get our food like 20 minutes later. I'm not kidding. No, I mean I might be exaggerating a little bit. Probably like 10 or 15 minutes later. But like waited for what seemed like an eternity for a meal when the store was dead empty. By the way, like there were some workers in the back, but like they were just like goofing off and not really working. Okay.
Hey, you
So
can
this is
say
what you.
that. They're watching Netflix. It's a very important job.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. You got me. So this is what happens. I get mine back first. Okay, I open it, I look at it. It's just a regular Big Mac with cheese on it. I'm like, well, that was kind of a confusing order. I can understand. I'm trying to be like a patient, understanding person.
Sure.
Like, okay, everybody makes mistakes, right? So then we get my brother's back, my brother's Big Mac back. Okay,
Mhm.
we open the box, and it's literally just a bun. Like no meat, no cheese, no. It's just a bun. It's like, okay, these people they didn't even try. That's what you did. You gave me just a box with a bun in it.
Well, no, I gave you the box. Here's a bun. Here's your Big Mac box for $4. Yep.
They let us keep everything. But no, they eventually got the order right. Like
All right.
this time, actually, like 15 minutes later, like they got it right.
So, all right. So give me 15 minutes, listeners. Just 1 second. I mean, not 1 second. 15 minutes.
But for real, I think Flame Strike might have like it might be balanced enough, but 8 mana deal 6. What do you think? Like
8 mana deal 6.
like 4 red, 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 deal 6 to all creatures you don't control.
I don't like that.
Really? Well, okay. Well, what do you not like about it?
I'll probably do 6 red, red.
Okay, 6 red. So you don't like the harsh color requirement? Okay. That is a difficult color requirement. That's why. What about 5 red, red, red?
No, that's fine.
Deal 6.
I think that's
Okay.
fine. Just my gut feeling. I don't know why, because I feel that it's fine.
It just seems right, yeah?
That seems fine, yeah.
Okay. So I guess for now, that'll be our our somewhat answer. And
Just
even then, I think
remember, if you pay 1 more mana, you will have destroy all creatures and planeswalkers you don't control.
that's a pretty big upgrade.
Da da da. But hey, I mean, as we have talked about, the marginal cost of the 1 extra mana
Demands more.
versus the marginal benefit of that spell. The marginal benefit of the spell is upgrading from dealing 6 to everything to just straight out killing everything. That's all.
Literally everything.
Yep.
When you play that card in the green black devotion mirror, that card basically just says you win the game. Because you also played some planeswalkers in that deck too. You played Nissa and Zenego.
Sure. Yep.
So, yeah, that was a real killer. And
How do you kill Senegos? Oh no, it exiles. Is it exile? In
no.
Garrick's way?
Xena the Planeswalkers.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. No,
It's kind of funny that when he's a god, he's indestructible, but when he's a planeswalker, all of a sudden he's weak and everything.
I know, dude. The Planeswalker version was way more vulnerable than the creature version was.
Yeah, what's wrong with that? Oh well, he did become a god from a planeswalker.
So I guess
Giving up his spark.
So we have confirmation that gods are stronger than Planeswalkers.
Oh yeah, duh.
Oh, but why is getting into the trials so much better than like the 4 gods in standard?
Well, I don't know. I think
And the exception is what is the blue black one?
Scarab God.
Yeah, like Scarab God's like the only one that's actually good. All the other ones are kind of trash.
No, Scarab God is really good. It's kind of hard to beat. But I don't really like blue and black. I said it, guys. I don't like blue and black.
Wow, everybody lynch him. So from there, like we can kind of like evaluate. We can better evaluate mana sources. You know, with all that the huge conversation and discussion we just had, now we can actually evaluate some mana sources too.
Sure. In what sense?
That's a great question. So, well, like let's think of a card like Manolith. You know, like let's just okay. So for simplicity, we're gonna assume that there's no artifact synergy at all in your deck.
Sure. So
just playing Manolith.
3 mana tap to get 1 mana of any color.
Yep. So, what do you think? Is that a good card?
Since I'm playing that in multiple of my Brawl decks, I would say yes,
it's a Brawl deck.
card.
It's a Brawl deck.
It's a good card, yes.
And well, do you think it's a great card?
I don't think it's a great card because if I have green, I can easily just play, grow from the ashes. For the same amount of mana, I can do more.
Yeah, you know, Manolith is just. It's just. How do I say that? You know, it's like mediocre, but like mediocre has a weird connotation to it. You know, it's mediocre but reliable.
Right. I mean, think of it this way: for 3 mana, I mean, we're talking about opportunity cost, right?
Right. So the opportunity cost
by
is
playing Manonith, you're giving up your opportunity to play
a 3-drop.
No, Carnival Caravan, which is 3 mana, tap to add 1 mana to everything, but also has crew 3 to become a 5/5 creature.
But you're also giving up your opportunity to play a 3-drop on 3.
You're also doing that.
And you're also, and the other opportunity cost is a whole card.
Yeah, you're also giving up your opportunity to play that great card that says 2 and a red to deal 2 damage to everything that you don't control.
2 damage or 1 damage?
2 damage to everything you don't control.
Oh.
It's called Flame Strike.
Oh, so the Johnathan and rendition of Flame Strike. But like, okay, so we have Manolith, right? What do you think about Farseek?
Farseek?
Yeah.
Farseek is a great card. For 1 and a green, and you can look for a land. Perfect. The only deck is bad in is the mono green deck. Don't play in the mono green deck, guys.
Well, even in the mono green deck, all you gotta do is just play some shocks.
You can't do that in Brawl.
But Farseek isn't in Brawl.
That's true, but I'm saying how hypothetically if it gets reprinted
but no,
in Replica.
There are some red green lands. It's the red green land that
but
just enters about
if your commander is mono green, you cannot cast Farseek to find that mountain.
You got me there.
That's what I mean by mono green deck, guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's right. He's right there. So, definitely compared to Manolith, though, Farseek is a big upgrade, except in one deck.
And an even bigger upgrade would be Soaring.
You know, like, let's just do a quick rundown, or comparison, sorry. So, Soul Ring, 1 mana. Farseek, 2 mana. Manolith, 3 mana. And let's just ignore color for a
And,
second. Let's
yeah.
also just assume that Soul Ring. We know Soul Ring's OP, but let's just also assume Soul Ring only taps for 1 instead.
Yeah, and we also forgot Hedron Archive, 4 mana.
Right. So the opportunity cost is the same with all of them. The opportunity cost is always just any other card in your deck that you could have had.
Right.
Okay, that's easy. So, but the opportunity cost gets higher and higher, like because cumulatively, like with your Soul Ring, the opportunity cost mana wise is I could have played only other 1-drops, but
Right.
but with Farseek now it's I could have played 2 1-drops, or I could have played a 2-drop, and the 2-drops are more generally, not always, but generally more powerful than the 1-drops.
Or you could have held up your mana to threaten counters.
Right. Like there's you could have played that 2-mana card, and then it gets even more expensive, like relatively, but it gets even more expensive with Manolith, right? So with 3 mana, you could have played 3 1-drops, played a 2-drop on a 1-drop, or played a 3-drop, and 3-drops are generally better than the 2-drops with
Right.
1-drops.
Or you could have held your mana for cancel.
Right. You could have even held up more mana, so you could have held up Counterspell and Dispel or Cancel. You could have widened your pool of available counterspells available to you. So the opportunity cost as the mana cost of something increases just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, honestly, even if they made Soul Ring only tap for 1 mana, I think it'd still see equal amount. I don't think it would see any less play.
Sure.
Because the opportunity cost is just that low.
Sure.
They should do that. I think they should errata Soul Ring to only tap for 1, and I think it would be completely justified.
I don't think they should, because why would you do that when there are already
To annoy all the EDH players.
No. When there are already artifacts that taps for mana, colored mana no less, for zero convert mana cost.
But are they legal? I don't think the boxes are legal.
I think boxing are legal anywhere Soul Ring is legal.
Even in EDH?
Not in EDH, but in Vintage.
In Vintage, okay, those are literally the only 2 formats we're talking about. And Vintage is the less related one.
Sure.
So in EDH, I think they could errata it and it would be fine because the boxes are not legal in EDH.
Sure, that's fine.
Sure.
I would not.
They're not going to.
I would not play Soul Ring if it only taps for 1 mana. I would
really?
not. Yeah, because the reason why Soul Ring is so important is because I can turn 1.
You can do stupid stuff.
No,
sooner.
I can turn 1, play my mana and play Soul Ring, and turn 2 I can play another land and play my 4-drop commander.
So you can do stupid stuff sooner.
Now I have to wait 1 more turn, and God,
yeah,
I
exactly.
hate waiting.
That's what I said. You can do your stupid stuff sooner.
It's not stupid. It's great.
It's stupidly OP.
It's not that OP.
All right. It does slow the format down. I would agree.
It will absolutely.
Yeah, maybe they should nerf Soul Ring. Honestly, if it were up to me, I wouldn't nerf Soul Ring. Soul Ring is such a fun card.
Yeah.
But it arguably it does add a lot of swinginess though into EDH. When I say swinginess, I mean like variance actually is what I was looking for, right? So like if you draw your Soul Ring in EDH, your odds of winning go up like crazy. It's like drawing Kalseth versus not drawing Kalseth. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think so.
So if I were trying to make EDH like a more consistent competitive format, then I would definitely nerf
How about Brawl?
Soul Ring, but I just wouldn't make Soul Ring legal in Brawl, period.
Good idea. I mean, Manolith is legal.
Yeah, I think Manolith is a comfortable standard.
I think Manolith is fine too. I don't know if they. Yeah, I think it's fine. A lot of the Ram cards, the non-mana dark Ram cards, starts at 3 mana, and I think that's pretty good for our format.
Yeah, and that leaves green its color identity, like better ramp. Your ramp starts at 1 and 2.
Right.
But I think that just about kind of like wraps up what I wanted to, or what we wanted to say on the topic. Do you have any other final thoughts?
Yeah, as always, if you have any questions, if you disagree with anything remotely, that we have talked about
Write
this
us an angry
episode.
letter.
Yeah, for example, my proposal of the 1 and the red, deal 1 damage to everything you don't control. If you have a problem with that, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter at Brawling Pit. You can email us at brawlingpitmtg@gmail.com, or you can leave an angry comment on our official website, brawlingpit.com.
Telling us how much I suck.
Right. As always, I've been Johnathan, and he's been Jacob. Thanks for listening.
So, you remember last week how I was like, well, there are only like 4 ways to lose after you cast an Angel's Grace?
Yeah, I remember.
I'm not sure. Okay, here's the thing. I'm not sure if I actually said it like that, but that's what I meant. So, apologies to any people that were confused about that.
Yeah,
But
hold on. So what did you
I didn't,
mean?
I didn't mean it resolved necessarily. That wasn't. I may have said that. I apologize. That's not exactly what I meant. I'm an idiot. There's nothing new there.
Alright, idiot. What did you mean though? Like by
So I just meant what are the ways that you could lose or deal with Angel's Grace after it's cast, because it has split second.
I well there
So
there are
what are your
plenty of
guesses?
there are plenty of ways, I think.
Okay, what are the ways?
So number one way, you can put your infect creatures at their face and put them at 10 poison, and when when the turn ends, they'll automatically die. That's way number one. All right.
Yeah, see, it's like, you're technically right, but like I didn't phrase the question carefully enough. I didn't even do it just then. I still didn't even do it right. So like, one of the ways you could win the game after you, or one of the ways that a player could lose the game the same turn they cast Angel's Grace.
I don't know how,
Okay.
because
Well,
it
and when I
says you
say,
can't lose the game.
yeah, it
That's
literally
what the
says
card
that
says.
turn.
That's what the card
Yeah.
says. I can't disagree with the card.
Exactly,
The
right?
card is king or
Exactly.
queen for
Well,
those of you who
as-
are
As we just said, like Magic has a set of rules, and all the cards break them.
right. And I can't break the rules of on the card. If it says you can't lose the game this turn, I don't see how you can not lose the game this turn.
So I said there were 4 ways last time. I'm gonna be honest with you, I can't remember 2 of them from what I said, but I knew there were. I think they were right. But what I was getting at was no, actually I can remember one of them. I'm gonna say 3 of them, and then there's one more that I'm thinking of.
Sure.
There may be more. I'm not saying that these are the only 4, but I think there's I can definitely say there's 4. So 3 of them. 1, this card's on the stack. You can still unmorph a Willbender.
Oh my gosh. Yes, you can.
You can still unmorph the other Konzatarkia Willbender. I don't know what he's called, but there are 2 Willbenders basically with more.
Yeah. Can you respond to split second cards?
Yeah, you can. You can tap mana, and you can
Okay,
you
then.
can unmorph.
Willbender
And you
works.
and you can unmorph.
So
You can
Willbender
unmorph it.
and then target yourself. Got it. Okay.
No, you Willbender target the Angel's Grace
Oh, okay. Willbender targeted Angel's Grace.
because it counters it.
Okay, that counters it.
Okay,
No, you're
and
right.
then-
You're right.
Yep.
Way number
And then
one.
no, those are 2 ways because there are 2 of them.
Oh, okay. So
there are
two
two
different
Willbenders.
cards that do the same thing. All right.
Yes. Okay.
Way number 3.
Third way. The third way is counterbalance trigger with a one drop on your top of your deck.
Oh, okay. That does counter automatically.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's one more way. Maybe I said counter. If I said counter, then I'm okay. But I'm still not 100% sure if I said that. So once again, apologies. I wasn't very clear on that. There's a 4th way.
Okay.
To
What is
either
the
counter
fourth way?
or to make the player lose the same turn they cast Angel's Grace. Not necessarily resolve.
Okay. What is
We're
the
gonna
fourth
leave
way?
that up to the we're gonna leave it up to the viewer.
So you don't want me to say it because I know the
listen.
fourth way.
You know the 4th way?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want me to say it?
You're,
I'm gonna leave it to I'm gonna leave it to listeners too.
yeah. Tell me after. I'm actually I don't remember,
Alright,
but I'm pretty sure
I'll
that's the
tell you
4th way.
after.
All right, but we'll leave it to the audience. We look
Alright.
forward to your answers. The
So-
deal is Is the deal still on? We just gave him like 3 out of 4.
Sure, the deal is still on. If you guess the fourth way, by the way, we've given you a lot of hints of those 3 conditions. So
And if there are multiple winners, we'll pick one at random.
yep, we'll pick one at random. So
we can't. I'm sorry. We can't afford to hand out free illustrations to like 50 people or whatever.
Yeah. So, yeah, just let us know on our social media, and
we look forward to hearing your responses.